I'm an American sitting in Moscow, Russia. Today, you can see from the live stream, we'll be talking about the conflict between the US and Iran, and we're going to talk about what that means for Russia. We have another guest with us today, another expert. And, sir, if you could tell us first who you are in relation to this subject. I know people are intrigued by the thumbnail.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be on your program for the first time and look forward to our future work together. My name is Christopher Helali. I am a American-born Iranian Greek American. So my mom's from Greece, my dad's from Iran. Specifically, I'm an Iranian Kurd and Lor from the region, the mountainous region in the west of Iran. And I grew up in the US, in the Boston area. I served in the US military. I was commissioned a US Army officer, and then left the military because of my disgust with America's foreign policy and my deep disagreements and the inability to change from within. Educated in the US, also educated in China and Greece, now living in Moscow, former professor and legal expert, and also a journalist now, and doing work in Russia's special military operation and in the wider region, including in the Middle East, where I have been recently to Lebanon, to Iraq, to Yemen, and hopefully in the coming weeks going to Iran to report on the ground.
Wow, fascinating. You are certainly an expert in this topic. Guys, welcome to Expat American. I am the Expat American. Find out what's going on in Russia, in Iran, and I guess the US as well right now. All right, man. Well, I mean, I'm legitimately impressed and surprised. When I asked you to come on, I didn't know that you had Iranian citizenship.
Yes.
I had heard, because you and I have met a couple times in person, that you did have experience serving. So I knew this would be a good topic for you. But you are definitely more connected than I realized. And what I'd like to start off with is, because this is in English, so a lot of our viewers are Westerners. And you probably know, us Westerners, we don't have a clear vision of what Iran is. So how would you want to describe this country to a Westerner, so it's not just like the Klingon homeworld or something like that?
First and foremost, Iran is a civilization with 5,000 to 6,000 years of recorded history. It's at the crossroads in Eurasia. It is, of course, by extension, part of the original first civilizations. When you think of Mesopotamia, when you think of Sumer, all of those civilizations also encompass territory in Iran, and later were built upon by successive Persian empires, and also various empires that existed in isolation in Iran. So if you go to a museum to see archaeology, you will see all of the traces of Iranic civilization. Also, of course, there are various theories, but Iran was very instrumental in the development of broader Eurasian societies, cultures, civilizations, religions. Of course, we have the term, for example, Indo-Iranian, to show the links between Iran and India, the birth of the Vedas and of Indian culture that existed. Also, of course, in the various racial theories that existed in the 18th and 19th century into the early 20th century, Iranians were considered Aryan people. The term Iran is derived from Arya, and of course, that term is a Persian term. It's an Iranic term. So the Aryan people are actually Iranian people. And interestingly enough, the German fascists saw Iranians as equal to the Germans. They saw them as Eastern Aryans. And many Iranians who lived in Germany at the time of the Third Reich were given Nazi citizenship, which is even more strange for people to conceptualize.
Wow.
But yes. And that's actually why Stalin and Churchill removed Reza Pahlavi, the grandfather of the crown prince who lives in the US, and the father of the deposed Shah, because he was actually pro-German. And that was a great threat for the Western alliance.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, fascinating.
So Iran is a fascinating country with a variety of ethnic groups, It's not only ethnic Persians, which make up about 60% of the country, but also Kurds, Lurs, Azeris, Arabs, Turkomans, Baluchis, and so many other minorities that exist. It's a mosaic of religions as well. Most people don't know there are 2 million Christians that live in Iran, most of them belonging to the Armenian or Assyrian faith. So that's the Eastern Christian tradition, what some would consider Oriental Orthodox. So it's very, and they are actually granted by constitution seats in the parliament. They are respected. Their religion is respected, and so are Jews and Zoroastrians. So the religion prior to Islam was Zoroastrianism, and we know the famous story of the 3 Magi. According to, at least in the Orthodox tradition, the Magi actually came from Persia. So the first people who gave and worshipped, gave gifts and worshipped Christ were actually from Iran, from present-day Iran. So it's a very fascinating history. Iran is a majority Shia Muslim country. So there are two main branches of Islam, Shiism and Sunnism, and also minority that are Sufi, not to mention some other branches. But Shiism, basically, the big difference between Sunni Islam is the leadership of the Islamic community. So after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, the question over where should the leadership reside, who has the authority in the Muslim world, eventually the Sunni position was that it would be a person that was from the community that was basically picked for that, and in the Shia branch, it belonged to the family of the Prophet, which went through Ali and then to his relatives after that. So this is one of the big differences that we see. Iran is uniquely positioned in the region. Iraq is also majority Shia. Saudi Arabia has a minority Shia population. Bahrain is majority Shia. Lebanon has a sizable Shia population. Syria as well, the Alawites, and other countries in the region. So to sum it up, because we could spend hours and hours talking about Iran. Iran has a profound historical tradition and legacy. It has it's very much different than some of the neighboring cultures, but also has extended its culture to those regions. So, for example, modern Turkey, the Ottoman Empire, took a lot from Iran in terms of art, language, culture, and traditions. And also Central Asia. Many people, of course, are familiar with Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan. Many of those countries have deep Iranic roots and civilizational roots. Why? Because, for example, Tajikistan, the language is Persian. They call it, of course, Tajik, but it is Persian. There's no difference in the language. So they are also considered Iranic peoples. And also Samarkand and all of these important, Bukhara, all these important trade routes. They were very important on the Silk Road. So you can see Iran is basically if you were to think about it in this metaphor, Iran is the keystone of an arch of Eurasia. So everybody, all the traffic has to go through Iran to get to the Eastern Mediterranean. So that makes it positioned for cross-cultural communication for millennia. And that's exactly what has happened. And that's what makes it such a rich country in terms of culture, traditions, and religion.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the globe, it's like right in the center of everything, and all these different land masses have to go through it if they're going to cross over, mostly.
Exactly.
So if you're standing on the street and you look around, you're a Western person, does it look 90% like home or 10% like home? Like 90% like the West or 10% like the West? I'm trying to give people an idea of how different or the same it might be.
Listen, Iran, like many other countries, will feel very familiar. There's a great family culture. It's very clean. It's very safe relative to the region. It's very important hospitality in our culture. So you'll be welcomed, you'll be fed, you'll be taken care of. In fact, it might feel even more like home than the West, because the West doesn't feel too much like home these days for many of us. Yeah. So Iran maintains a lot of these traditional values that we, of course, that are very important to us. We value them tremendously. Put them at the top. Iran still has that. Iran still maintains that culture, and that's so important. I think you'll see people having good times, enjoying coffee, tea, smoking shisha, things like that. It feels very much at home, and people are very curious and welcoming of foreigners, especially Americans. They're not against American people. When you hear, for example, death to America, death to Israel, they're not talking about death to ordinary Americans, because also there are millions of Iranians that live in the US. They're speaking about the government, and the government that continues, as is happening right now in front of our very eyes, to sanction them, bombard them, try to promote regime change and terrorism. So it's very important to recognize that Iranians are no different, really. And actually, they're very close to Americans. Russians feel very comfortable when they go as well. And there's a lot of mutual connection also with Eastern Europe and with the wider region. So you've seen a lot of videos now and people talking about it, but it feels I would say it feels 90+% like home in many ways. Maybe just the language you don't know and some of the cultural traditions, but in terms of feeling, in terms of humanism, it feels great. Feels great.
Right. I mean, it's a terrible time we're in right now, and mass deletions, and we're definitely on the edge. But perhaps one of the things that could come out of this is that there could be maybe a better international understanding of what Iran really is, or what Iran really is. What do you think would be the greatest misconception that an Iranian might have of a Westerner, or a Westerner might have of an Iranian, that we should, be aware of to help, not step on a landmine, I guess you could say, metaphorically speaking?
I think that one of the things that complicates the relationship between peoples is the isolation that it's imposed on them to not communicate, to not do people to people exchanges and things like that. That's why people to people diplomacy is so important for us. We know that it's been something that's been very important for those of us who've gone to the Donbass, to Crimea, to so many other places. And also people who've generally gone to Cuba, who've been able to go to other parts of the world and see it for what it is. I think the common misconceptions from Iranians is that Americans are maybe not too familiar with the world. Maybe they are ignorant of so many things. They just see them as, hicks. And I think that that's not true. Of course, there are many Americans who are ignorant, and that's not a result of their own ignorance. That's a result of our educational system, which has failed them. And I speak as a teacher who taught in the US, who was an educator, a public educator. Our education system is absolutely failing them. We don't have the resources to really put the time and the effort to teach them about all of these countries and all of these places and all of this history. So that's a big misconception that people might have. And that's why you always see, for example, how many people can point to Iran on a map. If you ask them, I don't know, in downtown Chicago, or, on the boardwalk at Venice Beach. And then people are like, oh, it's here, it's there, it's in Africa, it's who knows where. So that's the misconception on that side. On the other side, I think Americans have the misconception that all Iranians are somehow terrorists, that they're all running around with suicide vests and they're all gonna, kill everybody. And that's absolutely the opposite. They are the most welcoming, the most hospitable, like I said before, and they have a very deep love for people. It's the oppressors that they don't like, and that's part of the culture. It's part of the religious tradition as well. And I think that many people around the world can empathize with that. So those are the main stumbling blocks. And if we were to overcome them, I think that we would have a tremendous opportunity to really advance dialogue and solidarity between the peoples.
Yeah, I think that a Westerner, especially a Christian, is brainwashed to think that they would be unsafe going there and being open about their religion, but it sounds like that's not the case. If Christians are living there just like Muslims are living in the West. Okay, how many years have you lived in Iran, or if you just vacation there, or?
No, I've never lived there. I've never lived there. I've traveled throughout the region for many years, and as you know, I fought in Syria for 9 months. But I've traveled extensively through the region, and I have been welcome everywhere I've gone. I have not.
Very good. Yeah, and hopefully we have time to talk about your service as well. So, with all this in mind, we should get to the news of the day. Why is Trump doing this, in your opinion?
Well, I think that, at the surface level, we of course are making comments that this is not Operation Epic Fury, but Operation Epstein's Fury, and that this is somehow, not the US's main objective, but Israel's main objective, that this is an Israel first foreign policy, not an America first foreign policy. So I think that Trump is doing it mainly because Israel is pushing this and really fomenting a lot of the chaos that we're seeing in the region for its own geopolitical aims. It has this goal of a greater Israel. It wants to rebuild the third temple. It has its own apocalyptic designs and messianic expectations that are prompting this. And I think that the US has been sucked in both by Iranians in the diaspora from various factions who want to see regime change, and also from the neocons and the deep state that also want this. And sadly, many of us expected Trump to be different, but in fact, he's even been worse than predecessors. Starting 7 to 8 wars in 1 year is just horrific. It's unnecessary. But here we are again, another forever war in the Middle East that was totally uncalled for.
Does he not know that this is not what his base wants, or is he trapped and feeling like he has no choice in some way?
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that he has an understanding that some of his base is absolutely against this. Of course, there are statistics coming out that are saying that, I don't know, somewhere in the vicinity of 80 to 90+% of Republicans support this action. But I don't know if those are necessarily correct numbers, because a lot of the big MAGA influencers and the big MAGA communities are completely divided on this. And we're seeing people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, so many people coming out and basically going against this. Not to mention, the people on the more fringe elements like the Nick Fuentes and those types who are absolutely against Trump's intervention into Iran, this military escalation, and also that it will backfire, that there will be blowback. But I think that he's definitely, in a way, he's trapped. He's trapped because he is pushed on all sides by a very powerful Israel lobby. And there are deep family connections as well. I mean, he has his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who's deeply involved, Steve Witkoff. So many of these people are deeply involved with the Israeli government. And they've twice during negotiations, they've attacked Iran in the midst of negotiations. There won't be a third time at this point. I can't believe that Iranians will fall for it a third time to go back into negotiations only to be decimated once more. So sadly, we've been deceived about this.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the funny thing is with his return to the presidency, it seemed to me that the left in the U.S., the Democrats, were completely, destroyed politically. And then almost immediately, the right seemed to split in two over him, which is, I think, what we're still seeing, which makes sense, Well, let's turn this to Russia a little bit, and especially because you have military experience. What do you think are the strategic differences in the way the U.S. has treated the Middle East and the way Russia has treated the Middle East?
Russia has always treated the Middle East as its neighborhood, because don't forget, many people won't know, but the Russian Federation today, and historically the Soviet Union and the Russian Empire even more so, have territory that belonged to, for example, Persia. So, for example, Dagestan, Darband, belonged to Iran. It belonged to Persia until the late early 1800s. So those people were part of the Iranian civilization for so many centuries. So the Russian Federation has enormous ties. People in Tatarstan, people in all of the Muslim minorities have had some impact in cultural exchange, for example, with Iran over their centuries, over the millennia. So that's important to understand as well. And actually, I was visiting Kazan, and there were some very famous statues of famous Tatar poets, and they were in 3 languages. They were in Russian, in Tatar, and in Persian, which I was shocked about. But that's to show you the cultural impact in the region. So I thought that was amazing. Russia has treated the region also because of its close ties religiously, not only Orthodox Christianity with regards to the Holy Land, and of course Moscow, being called Second Jerusalem. So it also must protect the First Jerusalem, but also because it has a sizable population of Russian Jews that live in Israel and of Russians that work in the region, that are specialists in the region. So it has a uniqueness in that Russia has a large population of its own Jews that live in the region, a large population of its own Muslims that have ties to the region, and Orthodox Christians that see the region also as sacred territory, right? So in that way, Russia is uniquely placed historically and civilizationally to play an important role in the region, and has done so constructively. It has tried to combat, like we saw in Syria. It has tried to combat terrorism. It has tried to build. It's tried to have important economic and diplomatic ties. And that's important because it also is pursuing, similar to China, a policy of cooperation and prosperity in the region. Sadly, the United States has fomented so many regime change operations, not only what we're seeing now, but we had in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, in North Africa, and Libya, not to mention the war against Yemen, which has splintered the country, the crisis in Lebanon. There are so, and also in the neighborhood, Armenia and Azerbaijan, right, with Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh. So there's so many things that are happening, and the U.S. has been at the root of a lot of those problems. And sadly, people are saying enough is enough. Like, we can't move forward if you're just, how can it be that Russia continues to build stuff and then America comes and bombs it, which, by the way, they have done now, because it was Russia that was building Iran's civilian nuclear program. It was Russia that sent its scientists and some of its team members and citizens there to work on it. And now you're seeing in live view for the world that they're bombing these things, that they're destroying these things simply for being against the government and for pursuing a policy that I think is absolutely insane. So you can tell that there are two different views. And that's why, for example, in the region, Vladimir Putin, our president, is seen as, with great respect, he's called Abu Ali. So there are songs about him and things like that. It's amazing. When I was in Iraq, people were singing about him and dancing about Abu Ali, because they remember that it was thanks to Putin and the Russian army and Wagner that they defeated Daesh, they defeated al-Nusra and all of these jihadist groups. They were the protectors and guarantors of peace in the region. The U.S. the opposite. The U.S. was supporting ISIS and all of these groups. So they know, the people of the region know who's their real friend and who's their foe.
Right. Here's a little map here just to give everyone an idea of the location of these places and how far away the U.S. is, and how Israel isn't even that close to Iran. I mean, it's close, but it's not like they border each other.
Correct.
So, yeah, I mean, that's interesting about Dagestan. My wife has been talking about us taking a vacation there because, as you know, I make as many videos as I can on location for this show because I want the West to also know Russia is not the bad guy place. And we did go to Kazan. We have a playlist called Not Moscow, which is where we went to Kazan. And that's a fairly old playlist. I was kind of new to Russia, and I was brainwashed enough to think, wait, we're going where? Am I okay to go there? Because I heard it was a Muslim city in Russia, and I consider myself a serious Christian. I'm also genetically half Jewish, and some people can see it on my face. So I was like, can I go to Kazan? But it was completely fine. It was completely normal. And did it look like Russia? I would say 90 to 80%. It's just a little bit different, but not in a bad way. As far as the quality, it's exactly the same. Moscow is probably the shiniest city, and St. Petersburg is the most artistic looking. But if you guys haven't been to Russia, all the major cities have the same quality of infrastructure, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was in Kazan just 4 months ago. It was spectacular. It has a beautiful Kremlin, beautiful history, churches and mosques together. I mean, what more do you want of people living together in peace, and people patriotic to their country and devoted to their religious traditions? I think it's beautiful. I really do. I admire it so much.
What you described sounds like it could be a very good future for this part of the world if things can hold together in these conflicts that are happening right now in terms of the BRICS neighbors and the trading countries of BRICS, you could say. So yeah,
absolutely. And I just want to add to that, like, there is so much. This region is extremely rich, resource rich, has a very educated population. Especially Iranians are one of the most educated groups in the world. And to just see all that wasted for the designs of some petty elite that want their own aims and their own goals is so sad, because imagine what we could do without sanctions, with economic cooperation, with Belt and Road, with integrating these economies, with using these resources to build capabilities to advance human civilization. I mean, it's tragic It's tragic, and that's an understatement, to see the images that we're seeing and the level of destruction for no reason at all.
It's very, very sad, man. Especially, when you grow up in the U.S. and you feel like an American, to get older and to see this happening and to study the news and look seriously at what the truth is. And it's just like, my country is just messing things up. I guess they're doing it around the world because they feel like it's a way for them to stay number one, and it's better if they're in charge. I guess that would be their motivation if I'm trying to understand how they might be thinking, because most people don't think they're just evil just to be evil. But it's just very sad. And I remember, I think last year I watched the latest Mission Impossible movie, and it was a little less enjoyable because I was thinking, is this just like a CIA fantasy that I've been watching? I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
And how about you? Because you have Iranian citizenship and an Iranian parent, did you grow up in the U.S. feeling American or feeling partly American, or what was it like for you?
I mean, it was very difficult. It was very, very difficult because I was always an outsider because of my name, and people knew, and my parents didn't speak English as a first language, so that was very challenging. I was also in between two religions, two cultures, two traditions, and that was also very challenging because I had a Greek Orthodox mom, a Shia Muslim father. I was raised Greek Orthodox and baptized as an infant, but I also loved very much my dad's traditions and the religious traditions and things like that. And I wanted to be a bridge, and I feel myself as a bridge. I feel very much a bridge between these two worlds. And people always ask me, which one do you feel more of? And I mean, I feel more comfortable with my Greek side because I grew up with all my Greek ancestors, but that doesn't negate that I don't feel the same love and respect and admiration and connection and deep feelings for my Iranian side. I feel them for both sides equally.
Right.
Growing up in the US, people like to categorize you. It wasn't until 9/11 when my whole world, went upside down. So after 9/11, people wouldn't hang out with me at school. People wouldn't talk to me anymore. People felt that I was un-American because I was against the war, especially in the build-up to the Iraq war. I was a very, very big campaigner against the war. And, it was during that time period that, for example, it's just to show you how small the world is. It was during that time period where I did a project in high school and wrote a letter to George Galloway, who was at that time a member of parliament in the UK.
Wow.
And that was the start of our friendship. And now he's here, and I get to see him often, and we spend time together. We eat together. We do interviews together. And it's just amazing to see how much you can be impacted by a person so far away that can change the trajectory of your life in terms of activism. And it was his activism for the Palestinian people, against the war in Iraq, against the endless wars of the US, and in defense of Lebanon, that really changed my world in many ways. So in that time period, I really didn't feel very American. I mean, in many ways, I was American because I was a Boy Scout. I did my Eagle Scout project. I did all that stuff. I was part of the community. I went to town meetings because in New England, it's a big deal to go to town meeting day and to be involved with your local community and your historical society and all that. And everybody knew me. But at the same time, I always felt somewhat of an outsider. People wouldn't, for example, girls wouldn't dance with me at school. And, they would make snide comments. People would say all sorts of crazy things, including very racist things. Like, instead of calling the word that they use, derogatory word for Black people, they just add sand in front of it. And that's what they would call me. So,
wow.
I was used to it. It was a lot of that. So I finally, when I went to college, I said, okay, look, I want to do some change, and I believe I can change stuff from within. So I'm going to join the military. So I joined the military, and I eventually commissioned as a U.S. Army officer. And it was while I was in that training and in that process and in uniform that I realized that not only could I not change anything, I would be a target as well. I'll never forget a senior NCO, a senior sergeant, came and spoke with me, and he said, look, I want to be honest with you. He said, not every American who comes home from enemy fire. And that's when I realized, I said, listen, you don't have to say anymore. I get it. So I got out of the infantry. I got out of the infantry because he really loved me. He was Latin American. He was Hispanic American, and he said, "Look, I admire you. I admire your education." Because they would always make fun of me because I was so into education, and I was a triple major, triple minor in college. They thought it was insane, but I really enjoyed it, and I always wanted to say, "Look, guys, all of these policies are bullshit. Like, we are literally putting our lives, wasting our lives and our resources for nothing." And they would say, "You're not a politician. You can't make these kind of choices." I said, "Yeah, but if I'm responsible for soldiers' lives, I can, in good conscience, send them up there when there's no real reason for it." Right. So he tried to protect me. I got out. And eventually I resigned my commission. And it's just hard. It's hard to see that so many people who fought in Iraq, so many people who fought in Afghanistan, what are the results of those wars now? Really? What did they change? The Taliban's in power in Afghanistan today. It could have stayed that way and nothing would have changed. We were in Iraq. Now, what's the change? Okay, Saddam isn't there, but in the sense that you destroyed a whole country, you killed 1 million plus people, you ruined hundreds of thousands of U.S. lives in terms of service people with PTSD, with wounds, the thousands who were killed. For what? For what? For what? So I felt like an outsider, but also a part American. So I was always in between. I was always, you never knew where I could go and how I would be received by people. And I feel that way, still when I would travel to the US. It's sad because I admire so much. I was a teacher of US history. I admire so much about the founding fathers, the traditions, the history, the struggles of working class people. But sadly, the US has changed a lot and has become an empire with no restraint, with no ethical compass, with no morals. And it just seeks to impose itself on the world. And we see that in Ukraine. We see that in the Middle East. We see that in Latin America. We see it everywhere.
Right. So guys who are watching, I want you to know as we go through this, I am looking for your questions, and we're going to get to those in a little bit. Did you see action, Christopher?
With the U.S. military, no. I never saw action, but I volunteered and fought in Syria and saw action there for 9 months.
Wow.
Yes.
Who were you with?
So I was with the Kurdish forces. I was with the YPG, and I also worked alongside Russian army, Wagner, and also Syrian Arab army.
My gosh. Wow. Yeah. So you really know what it's like. What was your role?
So I went in there. I did the YPG international training. Then I was assigned to a small Turkish communist group that's been armed since the 70s. And I was part of the International Freedom Battalion, and I became an assistant commander. And I partook in direct combat for about 4 to 5 months in Raqqa Phase 4, Phase 5 against Daesh. Was almost killed on numerous occasions. I got injured and recovered back at the rear base, and worked as part of the pro-Russian faction of the Kurdish movement. So we advocated for alliance with Russia, alliance with Damascus, and kick out the Americans. But sadly, we were a minority and we lost out.
Would the U.S. mind you going back to the U.S. or traveling there, or is that an issue for you now?
It's always been an issue for me over the past decade or so, but it's gotten worse and worse over time. And I've been detained. Every time I come back in the country, I'm detained, and the FBI harasses me. They've come to my house. They've raided my house, over a decade ago. And for me, I have no desire to go back to the U.S. right now. And I don't want to put myself in any harm's way. And I've done nothing wrong, but simply for speaking my mind. You can make all sorts of lies about you.
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter if you've done anything wrong or not.
Exactly.
Exactly. I'm comfortable here, and I haven't done what you've done so far as far as putting myself on the radar. But even I think, well, Russia's big enough. Maybe I'll just stay here for now, especially since I'm doing more political videos. So then, as far as military questions, what is the U.S. military's misconception regarding Iran's readiness or Iran's ability to sustain this conflict that they're in? What do you think?
I think that the U.S. military assumes, wrongfully so, that Iran's military structures will not be able to endure the loss of senior commanders, the supreme leader, and various other political and military leaders that are killed at the lower levels, let's say the regional levels or the state levels. But that is a very, very bad misconception of the structure of the Iranian military, which is both a mainstream armed forces and also contains a militia force, the Basij. So the Iranian military structure and doctrine is actually at the smallest scale built for no command structure, except at the most basic unit level. So they already have factored in that everybody dies above you. What do? And so a lot of those local commanders, a lot of those, you could say platoon, squad, platoon, company level commanders have full authorization to continue war efforts. So they don't need to have some general sitting in Tehran or in some bunker giving them orders. Those regional commanders, those local commanders can carry out operations on their own, as long as they are pursuing the interests of the country. So that's the real key. So you look here, a lot of this is a great graphic here. A lot of the strikes, as you can see, have been centered on the western part of the country. The eastern part of the country remains untouched so far in airstrikes. And you can see that from the map. And that's
why is that? Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
And that's to show you that the air defense of Iran's capabilities are still intact. The US does not have, and Israel do not have air superiority, air supremacy over Iran yet. They simply do not. They have it in some parts, but not in all the parts. And they'll continue to try to hunt down air defense sites. But Iran still is capable of shooting down drones and shooting down aerial assets of the US and Israel. And that's well established now. There are multiple drones that have been shot down by the Americans, or that are American and Israeli. So I think that people have to understand that Iran's capabilities are still varied. And we just had a report today in the press in the US that upwards of 50% of Iran's ballistic missile capability and way beyond that in percentage-wise of drones are still intact.
Wow.
So Iran, what has Iran done? Iran has dwindled the air defense of the Gulf states and of Israel, and now has free reign to rain down missiles on the targets that it seeks. So that's very important to understand here.
Yeah, and I was looking at this map right here in particular, and to me, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the green is mountain ranges.
Correct.
So what I see looks like 2/3 of a natural Kremlin-shaped country, and
Correct.
I believe the other third is desert that would be hard to cross. So, I mean, it would be very difficult, it looks like, for a foreigner to take this country.
Yeah, very, very much so. Very, very much so. That's why Iran, as you see it there, has kept pretty much its borders for centuries like that. These are the natural borders of the country. And
Right.
I think that anybody who assumes, I mean, for example, just look at the map. Where are you going to land a force? The US, okay, US wants to invade and put boots on the ground. Where are you going to put them? How are you going to keep command and control? And this country, and Afghanistan was mountainous as it was, with with a population far lower. Iran is about 90 million people, a standing army of over 1 million, plus Basij, which can go upwards of 2 million. And Afghanistan was far lower and still defeated the US.
Right.
So it's just it's absolutely insane how anybody can think that they can go in there, take this country, and hold it until they put a regime that they want. And you know what's going to happen? I'll give you a prediction. Say, for example, they go in and they take over Tehran and they put in the regime that they want. Once the US leaves, it's gone. It's finished. Because Iranians will resist anyway. They won't accept a foreign imposed regime. And if the US stays, you know what's going to happen again? Roadside bombs. Every time a US convoy goes back, again, some poor guy from Minnesota or Montana or Wyoming is going to get his leg blown off or his hand blown off or his head blown off for no reason. No reason at all.
Yeah. It's awful. Not to mention the lives that have already been lost with the worst case, I believe, so far that's in the news is, of course, that girls' school, which to me is just insane. It's just ridiculous that and just awful that would happen.
Absolutely.
So how might this escalate? Are there any safeguards that could be used to stop this from getting worse?
I mean, at this point, the only safeguards would be if the U.S. and Israel cease their attacks and basically accept Iran as it is, and they try to come to some diplomatic solution. But there is absolutely no military solution for this at all.
Mm-hmm.
Either the U.S. is going to have to fold and put its tail between its legs because Iran is going to destroy the global economy. We're just at the beginning. The Strait of Hormuz stays closed for a couple more weeks. The Emirates, Emirates Airlines is shut down, basically. You keep on, you're losing hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars a day. You're going to cripple these economies. And if the US and Israel continue their attacks on Iran's energy supplies, Iran just has to send a couple ballistic missiles into Saudi Arabia's energy supply and some of these Gulf states, and it'll cripple them for years. For years. So the way that we're going is actually going to see regional escalation. There is no indication now of de-escalation. We're seeing escalation. And escalation is not going to be good for anybody at all. And look, here we have the regional vessel activity, right? There's the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, just so you guys know, so you know what he's talking about. The white is water, the red are boats, and the straits are the part which is not straight, where it's totally crooked, where it goes, you have to basically go into Iran with your boat, and that's high ground, so they've got that completely covered.
Exactly.
So
and don't forget, down at the bottom, just so your viewers know, that's the Bab al-Mandab in the Red Sea, and that's Yemen. So if Yemen gets in, Yemen has committed, but they're not active and ready yet. They haven't been activated. If they're activated, they're going to shut down also the Red Sea to the Suez Canal. We're talking about complete shutdown of the entire region in terms of transportation of oil and other goods that are imported and exported from the region. So that's huge. That's a huge hit on the global economy. And that's going to everybody talks about the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ and things like that. Good luck when Americans have to pay more. Already gas is rising. When Americans have to pay more at the pump, people are already ripping off their MAGA stickers. People are already angry because they said, we didn't vote for this. We voted for lower prices. We voted for more affordable food. We voted for clean cities, safe cities, law and order, curbing illegal immigration. And now we went to start another war.
Yeah,
we're spending $2 billion a day. For what?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just an American and you have no business in the international world, you're saying to yourself, why did we do this?
Correct.
We've got plenty of problems here that we need help with. Okay, so then is this a holy war? We see pictures of everyone laying their hands on Trump, praying with him. I've heard stories of U.S. soldiers being sent off, told, something to the effect of this is a spiritual thing that they're doing. What do you think? What does Iran think? You and I were raised in, it's a Christian society, but it's a secular society. I think it's more of an agnostic society. So it's just it's not natural that we are thought to think, if you're an American in the U.S. And in spiritual terms, everything's pretty much scientific terms. So what do you think? Is this a holy war?
It has turned into a holy war. Sadly, it was built up to a holy war, especially first and foremost, if we look at the Israelis, they see this as a holy war. This is part of their messianic project. I mean, they see it as destroying evil, Amalek, destroying, continuing on the legacy of Purim and, destroying this evil tyrant and then ushering in their project and rebuilding their third temple. That's what they want. They have it on their patches. They have it on their uniforms. They say it in their parliament, in the Knesset. They're open about it on Israeli TV. So there's nothing hidden there. And then the Christian Zionists get in there and say, yes, we agree, but for our own reasons, because we want Christ to come back. We want to bring about Armageddon. And that's what you're seeing there. You're seeing people saying that. We had Hagee, the American pastor. I posted the video in our big channel on Telegram and on X. But he said, Russia, Iran, Turkey will be destroyed as a result of this war. He said Russia's godless. Russia doesn't believe in Jesus Christ. I said, excuse me. I don't mean, here I defend Orthodoxy and Shia Islam the same, but when we Orthodox were we're having our ecumenical councils, these people were in trees, as my grandfather would joke. They were not Christians, they were still pagans, they were still druids running around with the big hoods and caps. And so it's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable that these people come and tell the Russians about the truth about Jesus Christ. Please, have some humility here. So they're pushing this. They're pushing this agenda that this is somehow a holy war. It's a new crusade against Iran, against Islam. In Iran, in return, because Shiism is so fixated on martyrdom, now you martyr the supreme leader. He's not only a supreme leader. The title, okay, is for the state, but he's a marja. He's a source of emulation in Shia Islam. He's basically like a patriarch in the Orthodox Church.
Right.
So you martyred him with his family at 86 years old in his house. Of course, everyone now looks to him as sort of a divine figure. This is the highest achievement. Just like our martyrs in the church, they become saints, right? So I think this doesn't help the situation at all. Now they've just made him from a political figure into a deeply religious figure forever. I mean, his pictures are already everywhere. People are, once his funeral happens, get ready to see millions upon millions on the street mourning him. People have risen up across the region, in Pakistan, in Kashmir, in Bahrain, in Lebanon, in Iraq. You're just seeing people all over the region absolutely enraged by this. Not only that, Russian Muslims are also enraged by that. Even though most of them are Sunni, they see this as an attack against their religion as well. They see this as an attack against a friendly country, a country that they have good ties with. We saw Lieutenant General Abdi Alodinov, who said in his Telegram channel, "I'm ready to go. If Putin sends me, I'm going to go fight the Americans." Right. This is a Russian general. This is
I would imagine that it unified the country. As terrible as it is, the impression I was given is that Iran is like partly, super religious people and partly, liberal agnostic people, and that they may have been divided, but now they're definitely not. Similar to when 9/11 happened, all of a sudden, everyone in the U.S. was united. Even other countries, were sending their apologies. I believe Russia and Britain, for example, were doing this. The world united behind, the U.S. or New York when that happened. And I think the BRICS world, it makes sense, would unite behind Iran, at least in their thoughts and prayers and emotionally.
Exactly. Okay. I think you're spot on.
Right. All right. So it's a holy war because Israel believes that they are fulfilling or trying to fulfill Old Testament commandments and mission statements. Basically.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Okay. Would you, do you think that this is World War III that we're into now?
I think that we are in a period, I've said this before, I think that we have slowly been entering into World War III already. That from all of these conflicts we've seen in the past 2 decades, we've slowly seen a ratcheting up and a deepening of conflicts between major power centers around the world. And this only inflames it and deepens it even further. So if we thought of World War II being, or the Great Patriotic War being in a much more condensed timeline, this is almost reminds me of like 100 Years' War or something like that. This is like a longue durée war where already we've gone country after country, government by government, and slowly we're bringing in the big guys. At some point, well, Russia's already in their special military operation. The war has already come to Russia. The war was imposed on Russia. Russia didn't start it. Russia was Minsk I, Minsk II. There was all sorts of agreements. But once again, a coup d'etat, regime change, and then going after ethnic Russians and creating that problem. And now we see in the Pacific as well. So the US and the West is goading these big powers into conflict. And they have succeeded in the case of Russia. In the case of China, not openly and not yet. And who's come to the side of Russia? North Korea, the DPRK, another nuclear state, which two nuclear states have gone to war with each other recently, India and Pakistan. I mean, we're seeing nuclear powers exchanging gunfire, planes getting shot down, missile fire. So we are already in the periphery of a World War III. The problem is that if we have an actual World War III, that's a nuclear war. Nobody's going to come out of that alive. So this is, I would call, a limited third world war. This is a limited third world war. It's not an open, like fully committed third world war, because that would require the highest level of firepower. But then nobody's willing to do that now because nobody wants to destroy themselves yet. Why? For what? It doesn't make sense. We were just cooperating and exchanging economies and things like that. And all of a sudden we want to now destroy the world for what? For who?
Yeah, and if you guys don't know, how close we are on the edge of perhaps something going wrong in the world, let me show you this in case you missed it.
If there were nuclear strikes from Russia into Europe in the next year or two, as you said there may be, what countries would that include? You'd take out Britain and Germany with nuclear weapons.
I beg lines of this conflict. But my choice would be Britain and Germany.
So, that was on Tucker Carlson. That was one of Putin's advisors a couple months ago. So it's already talked about openly in the news that Russia is considering taking out Britain and Germany, or advisors to Putin are considering this. So.
Yes, it's one of the options on the table because they're considering escalating the conflict in Ukraine. They're considering even putting troops in Ukraine. These are red lines. It's not hard to understand what another country wants. They openly say what they want. They openly say what their red lines are. But nobody is respecting those red lines. Nobody's respecting those positions. So that's a real big problem here. And you saw that there are different perspectives within the Russian political elite. But ultimately, Russia must be defended. Russia's security is a red line. If you cross it, you should expect the full weight of the Russian armed forces and a proportional response. I think the same holds true for any country in this case. But the problem is that the war against Iran, this war imposed on Iran, was not started by Iran. Iran was in the midst of diplomacy with the US, and they launched a preemptive strike, unjustified, unprovoked, illegal under international law. That should be understood by everybody.
Yeah, it's awful. It's tricky, in case you guys don't know. Yeah, so the U.S. is having meetings with Iran, hoping to maybe come to an agreement. And while they're doing this, they decide to strike. It's so backhanded, so terrible. And I don't know if you heard, but I also heard there was an Iranian ship in Sri Lanka doing exercises, and I believe the U.S. was there. And the U.S. let the ship go away and go around to the other side of Sri Lanka, and they sunk that ship. Which
was unarmed. It was unarmed because it participated in drills and in this sort of ceremony for ships around the world, and it was unarmed. It's a violation of the Geneva Conventions. If I was a submariner on there, I would resign from the military. That is deeply, deeply unethical, illegal, immoral, goes against everything of a code of honor in the military. You don't do that. You don't, for example, I can give you a practical example. Say you shoot down an enemy airplane and everybody parachutes out of the airplane. As they're parachuting down, it is illegal under international law in the armed conflict to shoot at them while they're coming down. Unless they pull out a gun and are shooting at you from the air, you must let them land. And then if they don't pull out a gun, you can detain them. You can arrest them. You can take them as prisoners of war. But you cannot just shoot at them like that. This is utter barbarism. There are some rules in here. But they sunk this vessel that posed no threat at all. And that, for me, is deep. And, of course, the White House is gloating about it. They made videos about it with clips, Top Gun, and all this stuff. It was horrible. Really horrible.
Oh, I saw that. Such bad taste.
Horrible.
This is not a Hollywood movie. This is real life. People are really perishing here. And they did the video game clip. I don't play video games, but you probably saw it. It's like, I don't know. There's some famous video game, and they edited it together, the start of the video game, and then actual, destruction of Iran.
Oh, Grand Theft Auto.
I don't think it was Grand Theft Auto, because it was like military hands on the computer.
They did one video with Grand Theft Auto. They did another one with like Halo and a bunch of other things. It was
really sick. Wow. Yeah, and then I saw the Hollywood movie clips. So it's terrible in my opinion. Okay. Well, then my next question to you, which I've been asking all the experts I've had on this week, and it is a question for the audience as well, which is mostly Westerners, I gather, that are watching this. And I want everyone to think, and I'm curious what Chris thinks. So Russia is supposed to be bad for starting the SMO, for doing the SMO. But the U.S. is good And yet the U.S. has kidnapped the president of a country. They have deleted the leader of another country. They have first striked another country. They have, deleted innocents, children. How does this work? How are these stories being told and not challenged?
This is sadly the double standards of the international world order, if it even exists. This is sadly the double standards of the West. And we even heard today and in the past days from Peskov, President Putin's spokesman, who said, there is no international law. How can you speak of international law now? How can you speak of a rules-based order now? There are no rules anymore. There are no rules. Not even the people who say there are rules respect the rules, and they never have. So, one of the things that people are beginning to understand is that Russia, why the special military operation has dragged on so long, is that Russia has not turned Ukraine into Gaza. Russia has not done what the Americans and the Israelis are doing to the countries in the region. Russia sees the Ukrainian people as their own. They see them as their own brothers and sisters, as their own kin. They don't want to destroy the Ukrainian people. They want to liberate the Ukrainian people from a regime that is fascistic and violent. So I think that that's the difference. The difference is that the one is a war of liberation, one is a war of domination. And I think that everybody understands which one is liberation and which one is domination.
Right. So, Chris, how do you think this is going to end?
Being Iranian, Iranians will never give up. Iranians will never give up. They're going to have to kill 1, 2, 3 million of us if they want to subdue Iran. Iran will not be subdued. Iran fought an 8-year brutal trench war with Saddam Hussein in the 1980s, where the U.S. supplied, the West supplied and armed and gave intelligence to Saddam, secretly gave arms to the Iran, through Iran-Contra, through, what was his name? Oliver North, right? Oliver North. And you remember that in Iraq used chemical weapons of mass destruction. Iraq used Western-supplied weapons of mass destruction against Iranians, against Kurds in Iraq, in Halabja, killing thousands. And I think that when people understand that, when people see the truth of that, when people understand the reality of that, people can really gauge and understand that Iran will not give up. Even if it takes 1 million, 2 million casualties, it won't. And I think at the end, the US will be forced to pull back because of the economic damage and the political damage that this has caused for the administration. Already the Western press is saying there's no possibility for regime change. There's no possibility to win this outright. There's just a very bad idea. You've achieved your goals with killing the leader and destroying part of the arsenal. Pull back. But if they don't pull back and they go into the breach, the U.S. will lose this, sadly.
That was going to be my next thought to you. Is it sounds like the U.S. doesn't have the resources to go for 1 to 3 million losses in Iran. So
I don't think they have the resources to continue this for a year. Never mind for longer. I don't think so. And don't forget, we're in an election cycle right now. We are in an election cycle. This is an election year. These are the midterms. I think the Republicans are going to take a huge beating for this as well. Not only you have this, imagine you have Iran war, 12-day war last year, Epstein files, Venezuela, and the kidnapping of Maduro. How much more do you want to throw onto the list at this point?
It's crazy, which is why I'm still scratching my head. Why did Trump do this?
It makes listen, Trump came in with a very high approval rating, with a lot of popular support.
Yeah.
And he's now one of the most unpopular presidents on national polls. So the question is, why did he do it? Did he do it because he enriched himself and his friends and his family? Could be a reason. Did he do it because he's blackmailed by the Israelis who have Epstein stuff? Could be that. Could it be because the neocons and the military establishment, military industrial complex have pushed him to it? Could be that. Miriam Adelson gave him $250 million. He's beholden to her. Could be that. Could be a combination of all of them. But in any case, what it shows is that Trump does not have the interest of the American people at heart. He has the interest of his donors. He has the interest of his handlers. And he has the interest of his family above everybody. And that's the
Right. I don't think that he's got anything terrible in the Epstein files, just because I believe the Democrats would have crucified him for that by now. But I'm guessing either Mossad's blackmailing him, or McGregor told me yesterday on my show that it could be this was just the deal originally. We're going to pay to get you in, and you're going to use the office of the presidency to defeat Iran.
There you go.
And maybe that's why he was talking about peace so much, because he knew that this was coming, and he wanted to quickly end Ukraine in one day, end that conflict and create peace everywhere else, because he knew he was going to have to do this. Of course, we're just speculating. So, guys, I want to turn to your questions now, audience. Hopefully, you've typed them in. Chris is ready to answer your questions, even if you're a difficult person. We're going to answer your questions anyway. But I have one more question for you, Chris, to give you guys the time to type something if you haven't yet. And that is, do you miss home?
I miss my kids. I miss my family. I miss my farm. I miss my community. But Russia is now home for me. So I'm here.
Okay. So you think you'll spend the rest of your life here?
I think so. I think so.
Is that because you want to, or because you have to?
No, I want to.
Good deal. Sure. Good deal. All righty. So the first question, let me scroll up to the top here. I've got it on the screen. I don't know if you can read it or not, Chris. It says, Iran has anticipated this war for decades. It naturally had contingency plans. So why did Israel and the U.S. think killing Iran's leader would lead to immediate collapse? Faulty intelligence?
No, I don't think so, because we know already from the reporting in the mainstream media that there was an intelligence report that said that this wouldn't lead to to immediate collapse, that this wouldn't lead to regime change, that none of this would have the effects that they were saying. I think it's similar to the Iraq war, where they concocted this material simply to get various benefits from it. And there are benefits. There are material benefits. Number one, the military contractors are having a field day. What did he do? He invited within the first week all of the defense companies to the White House. They want to quadruple production. Quadruple production means money, baby. Of course. Who's going to pay for all that production? The companies don't pay. We pay as taxpayers in the U.S., right? So there you go. Another handout, another gift to this military-industrial complex. And I think that at the end of the day, Netanyahu is in battle. That's why Trump repeatedly, even in the midst of this war, has asked for Netanyahu to be pardoned so that he doesn't have any legal case against him, because he's also charged with corruption. He's also facing a huge legal battle in Israel. So everyone is implicated in their own way. It's a circle of criminality. And to get out of this criminality, launch a war. Of course, launch a war.
Right. And I guess this is what happens if we're led by globalist, agnostic, or even atheist people. Just
absolutely
do whatever. Do whatever you got to do. The goal is to win, not to be good.
Absolutely. If you have no morals and no ethical compass, no moral compass, that's what happens.
Right. Okay. Stoshik asks, my question to Brat, that means brother, guys.
Yes, that's
Christopher,
right.
Do you see this attack on Iran as an attack on the rising multipolar East from the declining unipolar West?
Yes, I do. And actually, it's important to note that Iran was integrating itself fully into Belt and Road Initiative, into BRICS. It's a full member of BRICS Plus. So Iran very much saw itself as part of the multipolar world. It was very much it was a linchpin in Eurasia for the multipolar world. And before last year's 12-day war on Iran, it had finally, just a few weeks before, linked by rail Iran and China. So not only by cargo ships and by sea and by ocean, but by rail, China and Iran are linked. And now you see what happens, of course. And who's the net loss here? The net loss is for China and for Russia, who have seen Iran as an important economic partner in the region, of course. And what did the U.S. say now? The U.S. officials today on mainstream media said, we're going to take the oil. We want to control Iran's oil. Where does
Crazy.
Iran's oil go? China.
Crazy. Again, it's just more meddling or hoping to meddle. It's
Yeah.
like, why is the U.S. in Azerbaijan and Armenia right now? You know, that's the other side of the globe. You
Yeah.
know,
Exactly.
it's just crazy. You know,
Exactly.
and sad. And yeah, and if you look at a map, I mean, Iran has, I believe they told the other countries, we don't need assistance. We want to handle this ourselves. Something to that effect, right,
Right.
Chris?
Right.
You know, but if you look on a map, I mean, they are on that side of the world. I don't think there's any enemy countries in between them and China and Russia. So what I see is a country that could get a lot of at least resource help if they needed it, if this thing continues. And if Iran is saying we don't need help right now, you know, it sounds like they're not doing too terrible in this conflict to begin with.
Correct. I agree with you.
On top of that, it's like it seems to me like it's the worst scenario. If you're the U.S. and you feel like you have to defeat them, bombing them a few months ago and then stopping, you know, while in negotiations seems like the worst thing you'd want to do if you want to defeat them, because now they know you did this, and they better be ready that you could do it again, you know, and perhaps they are, you know.
Yes, I think that goes to another question that I'm sure you'll ask here soon.
Okay. Trump said to Britain that USA already won versus Iran. What do you think about who is really winning?
If the US was winning, it would have achieved its objectives. There's still missiles raining down on the Gulf states, drones attacking the Gulf states, US assets and logistics there, and on Israel. So I don't see the US winning at all. Okay, you killed the supreme leader. Maybe Trump is thinking about this like some high school, play yard fight, but it's not. This is an actual full-fledged war now against not a supreme leader, against a country, against a civilization, and the US has not won. Trump likes these easy victories. Trump reminds me of some of those people in school who enjoyed kind of like cutting corners just enough to get like a trophy or something, and then say, "I did it," and you're like, "What are you talking about? Like, you took every avenue and kissed ass all the way to get there." And Trump's like, "I took Maduro, I won in Venezuela." But Iran, no, just because you killed the supreme leader doesn't mean you won at all. In fact, I think that we might have an even more hardliner supreme leader now, because the supreme leader who was killed, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, what did he say? He issued a fatwa against nuclear weapons. Now they might have opened Pandora's box to the new supreme leader who says, actually, we need nuclear weapons because they're in our interests as a nation and as a people.
Yeah. So a fatwa meaning like what? Explain that to a Westerner so they understand what that means.
A fatwa is a religious decree that comes from a marja or comes from a senior cleric that basically is a duty for all Muslims to follow, especially for those who subscribe. For those who follow that religious leader and that authority. And
it's basically you're going to be punished if you break this fatwa.
Correct. Yeah, it's like it's a violation. It's a violation of your religious duty.
Right. So the supreme leader, was dead set against having nuclear weapons.
Correct.
And now he's been deleted. And obviously, the next one is probably going to have to be for nuclear weapons. How could you not be? Even if you're, let's say, a Christian and you're in this situation, you're going to be like, well, we have to have nuclear weapons because this is the world we're living in now. You know, the U.S. can't be trusted. What they're referring to here is, I believe that Iran told some of its neighbors that had been hit by Iran, we're sorry, you know, like it's the fog of war and we're not really sure who got hit and for what. And I think it was like to the UAE or something like that. But it was a specific, you know, thing they were letting their neighbors know because they don't want this thing to spin out of control and have everyone hitting everybody. Correct. And Trump is trying to take that and say, look, we won. They apologize, you know, which is quite a stretch. Yeah, you guys can comment if I'm wrong, but I think that's what they're referring to.
Big stretch.
So Ukrainians kicked out all Tartars. Tartars, I believe, is a group that lives in an area that Russia controls that is in Kazan, where you were, Chris, in Crimea in the past. Maybe Russia can reinstate them.
Well, Russia has built the largest mosque in Crimea in Simferopol. I visited. It's extremely beautiful. I did some videos for DD Geopolitics for our news organization from there. I was in Crimea twice in December of last year. And the Crimean Tatars are doing very well. They're being very well supported by the regional government in Crimea and also by the Russian Federation. They have all their rights protected, and they have gotten a lot in terms of compensation for the crimes in the past and a formal apology for many of those crimes. And they're doing very well. They're very integrated, and a lot of Tatars are also fighting on the front lines of the special military operation.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And I think that may be the only mosque I've been into, the one that's inside the Kremlin grounds in Kazan. And it's got these beautiful blue and white colors. And it's so impressive. So beautiful to see. Scanning down for our next question. I know we have a few here. There's just been a lot of comments, and we appreciate all the comments, guys. When this is over, I'll go through and read them. Here we go. Who's benefiting from the war this time? What do you think?
I think the military-industrial complex is the main beneficiary. I think the elite, the Epstein elite, I call them, in the U.S. and Israel are beneficiaries of this war. I think that they're the main beneficiaries ultimately. Anybody who has some skin in the game in terms of objectives or monetary benefits from the war effort have something, but everybody else is a net loser in this. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is a net loser. I will say that the Iranians have benefited by strengthening their nation, by unifying their nation in the midst of protests against economic hardship, and showing the truth about what the West really is. When they say the great Satan and the little Satan, it turns out to be true. And everybody can see that for what it is. So.
Right. Yeah, I think that we are in the transition of going from unipolar to multipolar, and if we can try to stay calm and carry on, as some people like to say, this may just be the process that we have to go through.
Exactly.
Okay, so here we got a donation. Stoshik, thank you so much, man. Actually, you and I have met this guy.
I know Stoshik. Stoshik's my brother. He's my brother, of course.
Because I think we were all at the same event, and then he heard that you were coming on. He sent me a photo of the two of you.
Yeah.
So it says, excellent show. Spasiba Tal Joseph. That means Spasiba means thank you. And Brat Christopher. Great news and dialogue. Okay, there's no questions, Stoshik. That's okay, because you asked us a question earlier. All right, guys, so we are going to close out soon. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. And as I scroll through, Chris, is there anything you want to tell to my audience or anything that we didn't yet cover?
I would basically say to follow this very closely and to be active, to speak out against this war. Nobody wants to see children dying. Nobody wants to see innocent civilians dying. This was completely unnecessary. So everybody has a voice. Many of you are on social media. Continue to follow people who are speaking the truth about this, and continue to speak out and talk to people and share news. Subscribe to this channel, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to some other people who are doing great work, and share, like, comment, get involved. If you can't do anything in public, if you're too busy, the least you can do is online to be a digital warrior. That's what we want to see. So we're thankful for all of you for all this great work.
I'm glad you said that, because we didn't say at the beginning, but I have put all of Christopher's links in the description of this video, and he actually was able to dual stream this on his channel. So we've got his audience and mine watching. So guys, thanks for watching both of us here. Next question: can the U.S. hold elections during war? Israel can't. Apparently, Ukraine can't either.
The U.S. has had elections during war. I mean, from 2001 until present, we've been at war. the war on terror. We saw the invasion of Afghanistan, Iraq, and all the regime change efforts. So yes, it can, because there's no war on U.S. soil. So most people don't feel the pain of the war and don't feel, it can't be used as an excuse. Although Trump did say and hint jokingly with Zelensky some time ago that, about war and elections. So some people have speculated that the U.S. won't hold that, but I don't believe so. I believe that elections will continue as normal.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad yet, but I wouldn't put it past Trump if he.
Who knows? Anything's possible.
If a Nixon thing was about to happen to him, he would try anything, I think.
I think so.
So next question for Chris. Hypothetically, what will become of Baku? How do you pronounce that name, Chris?
Aliyev.
Okay. Regime about as stable as Turkey's. Thank you.
Aliyev's regime and Baku, overall, Azerbaijan, are in a very unique and difficult position because Azerbaijan supplies a huge amount of oil for Israel, and it goes through Azerbaijan, then into Turkey, and then to the Eastern Mediterranean, where it's transferred to Israel. The Iranians have said that that's a legitimate target as well. So Azerbaijan has increased its military readiness, and it's fearful that it will be dragged into this. Now, most Azeris, so the country of Azerbaijan used to belong to the Safavid and Qajar dynasty until it was ripped away during the war with Russia. So the Caucasus region was lost. It was a part of the Persians, of the empires at the time. And then it was then an independent country in Soviet Union. It was a republic. And then it became an independent country after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Most Azeri people live in Iran because Iran has a province called Azerbaijan. So there's the Iranian province, Azerbaijan, then the country of Azerbaijan. Both of them are the same people, same religious tradition, Shia Islam. And even the president of Iran, Pezeshkian, comes from Azerbaijan. So there's a lot of Azeris also in senior leadership roles in Iran. Now, Aliyev, some of the Azeris in Azerbaijan have irredentist claims. They say that Iranian Azerbaijan belongs to our country, whereas Azeris in Iranian Azerbaijan say the country of Azerbaijan belongs to Iran. So it's very interesting, the nationalism and the discourse. But I think that there's a real fear that this could escalate and Baku could get dragged into this. If it does get dragged in, I think it could jeopardize Aliyev's regime. Although Aliyev's government is more stable now because of his victory in Nagorno-Karabakh. So he has some of that nationalist support because he was able to bring about that victory against Armenia. But, and of course, it was an ethnic cleansing, no doubt about it, of the Christians of Artsakh, the historic Armenian population. But I think it should be noted that there are Azeris in Azerbaijan, in the country, that support Iran because of Shiism, because of their religious duty. So it's very complex. And if Iran and Azerbaijan get into a conflict, I think it will prove very costly for Aliyev and for Azerbaijan, and they don't want it. And it might drag in Turkey, which is the second largest NATO army. So this is where you go from regional war to a World War III type scenario very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. So the question is, what side does Turkey take, I guess? Difficult question. Yeah. Hearing you talk, man, and remembering what you said about an hour ago about how high school was hard for you in the U.S., I'm very happy for you that you get to live this international life now and be a person that is considered just a regular person in this multi-ethnic world over here,
it's a rich
and
blessing.
not an outsider. Yeah,
it's a rich blessing. Thank you.
So I think Trump's just drugged up and docile now, someone says. He's just the hand puppet of the real problem behind him. What are your thoughts? What do you think?
I do think there was a report, it was some years ago. I'm trying to remember where I talked about it on one of our recent streams, that there was a picture of Trump in his office and his drawer was open. And there were a lot of like different pills and medications there. And this was also during his first term in office. Certainly, he uses different medications. We've seen his hand wound. We've seen his neck wound. We've seen him sort of declining in health. I don't necessarily think that he's a full puppet per se. He's not like a Biden situation. But whatever people have on him and whatever kind of business deals and relations he has, certainly he is doing the bidding of also other people as well. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't see that he's like Biden at all. I mean, he's what, 80 now, right? Or he's about to
Correct.
be 80. I mean,
Correct.
anyone who's high functioning and 80 has got to be on lots of pills. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. But yeah, you do have to wonder because his actions are so separated
Oh
from
yeah,
what he was elected for. You know, it's just crazy.
you're
So-
right.
Well, guys, it looks like we've hit the end of our questions. I like to go for about 90 minutes. So we're at about 90 minutes now. Like Christopher said, you know, definitely follow us. You know, we're all busy. I know you guys are busy. We all have different things we're doing. We have different levels of influence. But one thing we can all do is share these videos. You know, Christopher and I work hard, and it takes a lot of time, and it doesn't give us much money, but we want to do what we can to make the world a better place. And you can help us out and share. Like I said, streaming on both channels. So be sure you're subscribed to both of us. And I think that's about it. Like I said, I do lots of shows out on the street in Russia so people can know what Russia really is like. And I will leave you guys all with a few clips so you know, in case you don't know what Russia's really like, of the city of Vybor.